All right, we just got out of a meeting with our manager, and we've hit a snag in our project. This issue has been unresolved and sitting on our issues log for 3 weeks with no movement. The technical teams came up with 3 viable options to fix the issue. We'll just call them Team A and Team B. But we're at a point now where we need the director to make a decision on what option to move forward with. So our manager has asked us to make a short deck that she can use in a discussion with the director and get a decision. We've been part of the working sessions for the past 3 weeks, so we've got some meeting notes we can work off of, a ton of emails between Team A and Team B we can review, and finally, we took some photos of the whiteboards during those working sessions that we can reference as well. Let's get started with the purpose of presentations. Okay, so let's use one of our older lessons to get the thought process on the presentation going. What's the purpose of the presentation? Well, we need to get the director to make a decision on what option to pursue. So there's definitely informative to get the director up to speed. We need to make sure we include the critical information she needs to understand. But there's also persuasive in that we have a desired outcome of a decision. We need to make sure our presentation continually drives toward that outcome. Let's talk about role and position. The director isn't at the highest levels of the organization, but she's still at the upper levels of management, so we shouldn't really get into the weeds of the details. As far as proximity, the technical teams don't report directly into her, so we may need to provide some level of context. However we build this, we need to keep the content clear and very concise. I'm thinking maybe 3 to 5 slides at the most. Finally, thinking about the culture, our manager definitely has a specific format in her slides. Title, subtitle, and kicker is something that she's always looking for. We've got plenty of older decks that we can pull from, and we'll use one of those as a template. Okay, let's start outlining this deck. We know that we have to keep this fairly short, but there's a lot of detail that our manager may need when she presents. So let's put down some high-level markers for the beginning, middle, and end to start. We'll keep a title slide from our manager's template. We're going to review this with her in our next checkpoint, so let's just put draft pretty big in red. We'll for sure need a summary slide, so let's go ahead to the second slide and get rid of all this old content. Since we're just putting some markers down, we can just put placeholders for content for now. We'll need to present the options. Let's make that the marker for the middle section. And at the end, the director needs to make a decision. Let's have a call to action slide. As we get into this further, we may need to provide additional detail. Let's include an appendix section to add potential information if we need to. And finally, let's set up a graveyard section for slides that we may end up editing out in this version. Moving with this high-level outline, let's start filling in some of the slides and put some meat in each of these components. Going back to the front, I think the objective of this presentation should be up front and center. Actually, let's make that the subtitle in the first slide. I'm not sure if calling out the director in the subtitle is the best idea. Let's make it more generic for now and say a decision is needed by senior management. Let's add some contextual bullet points, again making sure we highlight the urgency. We can take the notes from our meeting with our manager as the basis. So to start, we need to add the fact that this decision has been sitting in the log for over 3 weeks. To give some context of where we're going, let's state that the team has narrowed down potential solutions to 3 options that are the basis of this decision. Let's add also the consequences of not having this decision. So we're actually in yellow status because of this unresolved issue, and we actually have the potential to go red by the end of next week. Finally, although this looks okay, let's use the editing tips we learned in our last lesson to bring attention to the most important items in each bullet. Now the director can skim the slide and get the critical points fairly quickly. So there's a critical issue, there are 3 options available, and status goes red if we don't make a decision. Thinking again about proximity, if the director was super close to the project, we could probably just jump straight to the options. But I'm thinking the director may need some more context. We didn't spend much time explaining what that issue really is. So let's stick a slide in the middle before the options and provide a little more context about the issue itself before jumping straight into the options. We can title the slide Issue Summary for now. We have some pretty good information from the whiteboard pictures we took, and we can transition those high-level points here. Again, this is just a draft and we're not sure if our manager really wants all this detail. So let's make a note of the additional content we want to add, but let's stop here until we get feedback from her on this slide. Moving to the options, we want to keep it clear and concise. I think a table actually may be the best way to go here. We want to be able to read the table top down and left to right. So let's put the options from top to bottom and add the details of each of those options going left to right. We'll have a high-level summary and points of consideration for each. And these are the consequences and potential issues with selecting that particular option. After reviewing previous emails, meeting notes, and the whiteboard pictures, this is what the filled out table looks like. Now, since this is the director, we'll try to keep this as high level as possible, but there is a lot to understand. Actually, because of the severity of the issue, she may actually want more detail. Let's add a note at the bottom of the table to see the appendix for more details and put some placeholders there for now. Our manager will let us know if this is actually needed or not. Finally, the call to action. Actually, instead of call to action, let's just change this to next steps and include the action items that need to occur once a decision is made. Let's restate the objectives here and reiterate the urgency of the decision. Actually, just to make it super clear, let's add a call-out box that states the deadline clearly. Alright, so I think there's a decent start here. We've got enough content and a clear direction of the presentation. I think this is a great time to conduct a checkpoint with our manager and get some feedback on what we've got. It's a good draft and something our manager can really help us build upon.